Hello all. Now we'll be discussing about a very important topic under Hindu law. Why? Because see, Hindu law specifically speaks about something called partition, reunion of the family. So there is a concept called reunion after the partition as well. So for that purpose, we have to first understand what is partition, and then we have to understand what is the concept of reunion after the partition. Is there any provision regarding to the reunion? What is the view of Manu, for example, the ancient scripts? What does it tell? All those things we have to understand, and the present applicability of a reunion after the partition. Let's go ahead. So these are the certain key points that you have to keep in your mind in order to understand this concept. First one is what is partition? First thing that you have to keep in your mind. Next, what is the effect of successful partition? What happens after the partition is completed? Right. Next, process of partition can be administered in two methods. What are the two methods in which partition can be done? Next, two necessary conditions. There are two necessary conditions in order to enforce the partition. So what are those two necessary conditions that we'll be learning? And next, reopening of partition. Once the partition is done of Hindu undivided family, what are the conditions in order to reopen it? See, there are two concepts, reopen and reunion. What is the difference between reopen and reunion? There's no much difference. Reopening is the first stage, reunion is the second stage. When it is reopened, everyone comes and they are united. That is reunion. So reunion follows reopening of the Hindu undivided family. Next, what is a valid reunion? See, not all unions are considered as a valid reunion, right? What constitutes a valid reunion, that will be understanding. Next, what are the effects of reunion? What happens after reunion, that will be understanding. See, two effects: effect after partition, effect if such partition has happened, again the people, the co-partners wants to reunite. What is the effect? Right, what are the effects, that we'll be learning. Next, what if few co-partners do not agree for the reunion? What happens if they don't agree? Simple, logically speaking, common sense, such reunion is invalid, right? Likewise, these are the sets of words or keywords primarily that you have to keep in your mind. Next, certain case laws will be understanding, and next, concluding the topic. So I hope you got the structure of this topic. If you're clear with this structure, then it is good to go for the upcoming slides. Let's go ahead. Right. So what is the meaning of partition? Partition is a calculated division. See, this is the definition that you have to use. The word calculated division of the family property, that is ancestral property, amongst the members. Members are co-partners, right? So you are aware about the definition of co-partners. I think it's not necessary for me to again explain. Members, that is co-partners. Next, concluding the joint status. They're concluding the joint status. They are declaring themselves that they are no more a joint entity. Correct. This is the purpose of partition. Next, what is the effect of successful partition? What is the effect of successful partition? Such family ceases to exist. Once the partition is done, such family ceases to exist. It becomes a nuclear family, individual family, after getting their fixed shares. See, this is very important. Fixed shares as a co-partners. Right. Next, process of partition can be administered in two methods. An exam to write these 2 points, very important. That is partition. If they have asked this point, this question, you have to write total partition and partial partition. These are the two methods that we have in the concept of partition. What do you mean by total partition? Simple. In this, all co-partners, see, between all co-partners, partition is happening between all co-partners. So entire family is getting divided. But however, on the other hand, partial partition is happening between only few members who have decided to move away from the family, but rest all wants to still stay, single umbrella. So that kind of partition is called as partial partition. So this is a very important point that you have to keep in your mind. Two methods of partition. Next, two necessary conditions for partition. What are the two necessary conditions of the partition? Very important. I and E. That is intention to get separated, and expression, that is declaration, that they express it, intention plus expression to get divided. So these are the two necessary conditions in order to execute a partition. Next, reopening of partition according to Manu. What did actually Manu speak about? What did he tell about partition? He told initially that such partition, any partition for that matter, under Hindu culture is irreversible. Once it is broken, it is broken. Never ever can be brought back. That's what Manu actually expressed. But however, we have in the modern day legal provisions, we have the reopening of the partition. But however, this kind of reopening or reunion happens in like rarest of the rarest cases, as we know. Next, when can HUF be reopened? This is very, very important. You have to keep in your mind. Why? Because this speaks about the conditions where the reopening is possible. When, as you can see, when such partition is a fraudulent one, when partition has happened, when person is in womb, the baby is in the womb. So this is very important feature of Hindu law, especially in Mitakshara law, wherein a baby who is still not born but still is considered as a co-parsoner, and he has the right over such property. And if he or she is neglected when he or she is in the womb, such partition is considered as void. Right. Next, existence of adopted son, and such adopted son is not considered during the partition. Even that is a reason wherein it can be reopened. Next, co-parceners were disqualified. Any co-parceners, if you have left any co-parcener during the partition time, such co-parcener can challenge that partition and bring the family back in order to get his share. Next, absence of valid co-parcener. Above one and the below one both are almost the same, and you can write any one of that. Next one is if co-parcener was a minor at the time of a minority, like when he was a minor, he or she is a minor, and the partition happened, even he can challenge and get it reopened. Next, addition of any property. Last point is very important. Suppose partition happened with respect to X property plus Y property, and no one knew about another property, that is Z property, which existed, ancestral property. And after dividing X and Y property, they have found that there was some other property, that is Z, that is ancestral property. In order to get their share, they can come back, they can reunite. This is what these are the key features or key conditions in order to reopen the Hindu undivided family. One is fraud, person in womb, adopted son, co-parsoner disqualified, absence of valid co-parsoner, if co-parsoner was a minor, and next, addition of the property, any addition in future. So I hope you got the clarity. Next, reunion. So what do you mean by reunion? In furtherance of reopening, see, furtherance of reopening, first happens opening. They open it. Once they open, they become union. So union happens in the second phase, right? So next, only those members of the family originally who had a joint status are eligible to reunite. That means no new member of the family can be added. All right. Exceptionally, again, if adopted son was missed, he can join, but however, he should be a part of that particular family itself. No ex person can join who has no link with that particular family. That's what this point tells us about. It's all a general, again, you can just keep in your mind. Next, what is a valid reunion? What do you mean by valid reunion? See, this point is very important. Why? Because it says that intention is important. At the same time, intention, what kind of intention? See, reunion is happening, but if they don't have the intention to have a joint status with respect to property, see, reunion is happening for the purpose of property. Here, property is the master, kind of like for central focus. Everybody are reuniting only for the property, no other thing. If they're not reuniting for the purpose of property, then such reunion, even if it happens, it is not valid at all. That's what this point says. I'll read it for you. Simply choosing to live under one roof without the intention of regaining the joint status in a property shall constitute a valid, shall not constitute a valid reunion, shall not constitute a valid reunion. That means they should have the intention to reunite the property. And next, such reunion should have the consent of individual co-partner. Everybody has to give the consent to get reunited. All right. If anyone doesn't give, will such reunion be a successful one? Answer is no. Next, effect of reunion. What is the effect? Simple, pull back of the property and becomes a collective property. All individual property will be taken back and it again becomes a joint family property. Previously, because of partition, they had got the share, and when reunion is happening, all the property comes back to the single hand, that is under the hands of Karta. Next, what if few co-partners do not agree, as I told in the previous slide, do not agree for partition? If they're not giving the consent, as I told, there's no question of reunion. Such reunion is not considered as a valid reunion under law. Next, now this is all about the concept. Now we are going to the case law. So I hope you got the basics of the concepts, basics of all basics of this particular concept. Now we are trying to understand the case law. What is this case law about? Bhagavan Dayal versus Riyoti Devi in the year 1961. What did it tell? This case law has told us there must be intention. As I told, intention plus expression. Very important, my friends. You have to keep in your mind intention and expression. Next, another one is Dalbaks Laduram versus Rukmabai case. In this case, what was held? It was held that such reunion, any reunion for that matter, has to take place only, very important, only between the persons who were parties to original partition. Partition happened initially between the parties, and they are getting reunion, and only these parties should participate in such reunion. That's what this case law has told us. Next case law is Commissioner of Income Tax versus Vijaypuri. In this case, it was held that the court the court came up with certain conditions for valid reunion. When will the valid reunion happens? When such reunion is recognized as valid? Only when there is a deed executed. Very important, deed of declaration of union, wherein under the stamp paper of having, it should bear rupees 50 rupees stamp paper. They have to execute a deed of declaration of union. Only then such union will be considered as valid. So coming to the last slide of our discussion, you have everything in nutshell here in this slide. Whatever we discussed, everything is there in the slide. As you carefully, if you carefully observe, you will have the complete clarity. We discussed about what is partition. We are clear about it. Effect of partition. What is the effect? Hindu undivided family ceases to exist. Just concentrate on the bold words or letters there. You'll get the answer. Process of partition can be administered in two methods. Which are those two methods? That is total partition and partial partition. That is T or P. Next, what are the two necessary conditions? As I told, intention and expression. Very important. And what did Manu say about reunion? As he told, actually, he told that any partition which happens under Hindu culture is never subjected to reunion. But however, in modern day terms or modern day law, we have the concept of reunion. So next, conditions. What are the conditions for reunion? As I told, fraud. If someone, a valid co-partner is missing, adopted son. So likewise, we have so many, any person under womb, if he's in the womb, he or she in the womb, then such partition can be subjected to reopening. Next, what is a valid reunion? So when does a valid reunion happens? Only when rejoining of the property, simply coming and staying in under one roof in one house, parties cannot, or co-partners cannot tell we have reunited. No, property has to get reunited. Property has to come under single hand, that is under the control of Karta. Next, Effect of reunion. What is the effect of reunion? As I told, pull back of the property. It will be coming back to the status of Hindu undivided family. Next, what if co-partners do not agree? As I told, as we discussed, such reunion is invalid and no reunion happens. Practically, no reunion happens at all. And we discussed 3 to 4 case laws, very important. You have to keep in your mind and you have to write about the conclusion at the end. So I hope you got the complete clarity of the topic. Thank you.